Hi, Lauren Grace here, and welcome to the Afterlight. And I'm joined today by my fabulous guest, Simonne Lee. She is an animal communicator, an energy healer, a negotiator, and problem solver to animals all around the world. Simonne can help you if your pet is having a difficult time with change, aging, health, moving, change in behavior, or any additions to the family household. Simonne has an ability to be able to create a safe space for a deeper understanding and healing between you and your pet. Simonne is going to be joining me and you today to talk all about all things animal communication. We're going to talk about her process. I am dying to know why she thinks animals are here and how they are assisting us. I also would love to know whether or not animals communicate in different ways based on their species, and maybe whether or not they have some wisdom that they'd like to impart to you and me today. So Simonne, welcome to the show. Thank you so much for being here. It's not your first time on the show. In fact, I think it's like your third time now.
Yes, and thank you for having me again. It is my third time.
Sometimes when I get on with a guest, I get on with all of them, but some of them we have like a little special bond. And I think that you and I have that. And I just love getting to know you and I love having you on the show. And when you're someone like yourself who's so multifaceted, we've been talking so much about light language, for example, in our other episodes. I actually should tell the listener at home one thing that was really funny is so Simonne and I recorded our light language episodes, and I think it was maybe part 2, and I had my dog George here. And I went, I like picked him up and showed Simonne because I like to show him off. And then she goes, oh, George, do you remember this conversation that we had? So Simonne says, oh, George is telling me that he's very handsome. And I went, oh, right, you're an animal communicator. And I think because we hadn't been talking about animals, that idea had escaped me. And then later on that day, we went to the post office and 2 people told George how beautiful he was. And I was like, stop it. He knows.
He
So
loves it. Mummy tells him that all the time as well.
great. Yeah. So true. So after you said that, I was like, oh man, we really need to have a conversation all about communication with our animals. So before we get into this subject, can you just, for our listener at home who might not be familiar with you, tell us a little bit about yourself? And today we'll be kind of niching down a bit on the subject of animal communication. So when did your spiritual journey with the animal world begin?
I've always had it. So I am an only child growing up, and my mum always got me pets, and my pets were my siblings. And my mum said I always had a natural ability with animals. They were always calm around me. They would always like just relax into me. And I'd talk to them, I'd play with them. I had all sorts of animals, dogs, cats, birds, fish, guinea pigs. Back in the day, she even tried to get me a turtle. Not allowed now. But so I'd always have this ability and to talk to them and I could hear them back. I thought it was normal.
Yeah.
So growing up until I went to high school and I'd mentioned it to a couple of people, friends at that stage, they thought I was a bit crazy. So then I hid it. And then in my 20s, when I traveled overseas for a couple of years and then came back and adopted a cat called Cubby, that's where it really cemented the animal communication. We had such a beautiful, deep bond and such deep conversations. She was a really, really wise old kitty cat.
Mm.
And she worked with me with animals as well.
So, I mean, that gave me total goosebumps when you were talking about Cubby. And I think I might ask you a couple questions later if you feel comfortable with answering that. But just before we get to that, so for our listener at home who might not be familiar with the way that information can come through. And I know that myself, until I started mediumship and really hearing my guides, I never really understood the process or how it actually works. So can you share a little bit about how the information comes through for you? Like when you're talking about having a conversation, having a sort of a rapport and feeling that understanding and that deep connection with a pet, almost in like a physical way, I think is easier for people to understand, where they may have that kind of just feeling comfortable and the pet likes them and wants to sniff them and stuff like that. That would make sense. But actually getting information kind of given to you in another way is a little bit more challenging to wrap your head around.
It is. So when I do it and teach it, I teach it a little bit differently to how I do it, because I developed mine over like since childhood and stuff like that. So one of the
Yeah.
things really important to understand, and you'll know this from being intuitive, whether we see information, get signs, or whether we get a little movie screen, whether we get a thought coming through, whether we get a feeling. So all the different clairs, claircognizant, clairvoyant, clairaudient, clairsentient, all those different types of ways we receive and interpret energy comes into play with animal communication as well. So what it is it's about, like, I've really built all my senses up so they can show me an image from the past and I'll see it like a short movie or a flash of a picture. I can hear their voice, their intonation, their mood come through their speak. And it's not through my thoughts, it's like an external voice coming in my head, and I can feel what they're feeling. So for that, I kind of get a bigger picture because each one is giving me a different angle, a different aspect. And this is really works well with clients because animals are very similar to children. They can answer yes or no questions or yes or no answers. And my job is to get more elaborate answers or descriptive answers from them. So by them showing me an image or a movie scene, I can hear their thought, I can feel it, gives me a little bit more depth. It's like watching a movie and hearing it, but the feelings are coming across quite strongly.
One of the things I do want to ask you, I know we had a really cool conversation one time in one of our Soul Deep evenings. And I remember you mentioned to me that pets can actually stay young if we sort of get them to stay young, like treat them like they're our children. So when you're talking about having a yes or no question and then wanting a little bit more information, would you say that in general, if you're going to communicate with an animal, that their sort of their vocabulary isn't as enhanced, of course, as humans, and so they have to kind of subsidize that with imagery? Or is that, in those cases, is it maybe because someone like myself doesn't have children and so projects all of that children-esque onto a pet that sort of keeps them at that age? Can you expand a little bit on that fascinating idea?
And both comes into play with what you just said. They're both sides of what you said. So just as we have a dominant sense that works for us in how we receive information and energy through energy, animals have one as well. So they might talk more through pictures. Some might send messages more through words or feelings. They'll have a dominant sense as well. And I usually always work with the top three, especially when teaching it, because it makes it easier for you to understand. Some animals are better at receiving information or conversations rather than sending or conversing back with you. So the animal communicator's job is to entice them to speak more. Some haven't used that muscle, so it's really developing and activating it on the spot. And if they're used to being cooed and kept as a pamper baby, they don't need to express more.
Yeah.
You know, they get what they need through their cute looks, their behavior. And most people that have pets, I'm going to say nearly everyone that has a pet does have their own form of animal communication. So a lot of it might be physical cues when they're really excited. I can tell you every single person that's had a dog or a cat has been given the paw when they know their animal's not happy with them. It might be they just turn around, give them their bottom and swing their tail, or just stare at you like this, like, oh, I'm in trouble now. I know I am. So everyone's got that form of communication happening. And the next step with animal communication is being able to expand on that to get more detail.
And also, would you say about being intentional that you're doing that? Because I think that a lot of pet owners, for example, at least in my experience for myself, is we give a lot of directives to our pet. Do this, don't do that, come here, sit, lie down, right? We are always sort of telling our pet what to do, at least with dogs. I'm not sure if it's the same with cats. So we're not always opening up the chain or the channel to have a conversation back. And it's funny because when you're talking about being given the paw, I automatically had this vision of sometimes when I'm taking George out for a walk and I ask him to come to me, he'll sometimes look at me and go, I don't think so, and just go off and do his own thing. So ah,
I know that, like, they challenge you like kids do. They still challenge you.
yeah.
So a lot of the time we're directing animals, so we're projecting the energy towards the animal.
Mhm.
They can understand it if we're clear and aligned with what we're saying or projecting. So I'll just give you an example. A lot of the time we're multitasking when we speak to our animals. So you might think, oh, I'm going to cook this for dinner tonight. Hey, don't go there. And that meant to the animal. And the animal's like, what just happened then? We're not grounded. So our energy is all over the place. You have to remember that animal communication is specifically through energy. If your energy is aligned, you can get your message across much clearer to them. If your energy is scattered and you're multitasking in your mind, they're not going to understand you. One of the things that I always say to clients is that don't focus on what you don't want your pet to do or your
Mm.
animal to do. You can say no, but focus on what you want them to do. So have an image in your head of what you want them to do, say what you want them to do, and feel it. So how do you feel someone, animal sit down? You just feel yourself relax and plonk back.
Mhm.
And you have an image of the dog. I'll just use a dog sitting down, and you kind of plonk back and go sit. However you want to do it. Usually we've got the physical cues of sit, whatever, and they learn that way. But you can send like a double whammy message by using the energy words, and we're completely aligned with what we're saying. When we're calm, animals respond to us very well.
Yes, because they don't feel that we're threatening them. I know I've had situations with George where I want to try to maybe take something he shouldn't have, and the minute he feels like I'm getting in this space, he puts his back up, for example.
And it's a mixed message because they don't know what's going on. They just know
Mhm.
they're in trouble for some reason, but
Yeah.
it's unclear why. So they kind of freeze and do that, and they're waiting for a sign of what do I need to do next.
Mhm. I do want to call out, you just gave a really big piece of guidance and wisdom to our listener at home, and it was just done in such a casual way that I just wanted to highlight it for a moment. When you were talking about not saying, not telling our pet what we don't want them to do, I personally feel that's also a really big indicator for the universe as well. So it's not about putting out the intention of what we don't want, it's putting out the intention of what we do want. And I just think that when you said that, it was just such a big piece of wisdom in the way that we actually could be running our lives sometimes differently, that I wanted to make sure I highlighted that really clearly.
Because we do focus, oh, I don't want that, I don't want that.
Hmm.
And what do you want?
Yeah. Yeah.
Get that in the bigger picture then. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So as a psychic and a medium, and for yourself, I believe you're the same, although I don't normally call myself a psychic, a seer. I know that we have to have boundaries where, number one, we have to have boundaries for our own mental health, because otherwise it's like really intense. I know sometimes I go to a mall and I'll see all these people around me and I'll go, oh man, if I just flip the switch for a second, there are so many dead people here. This is crazy, way too overwhelming. So a big part about us being able to be intuitive is also you having permission to really connect with people's energies, as opposed to just kind of doing that. Do you have a similar process with animals, or do animals sort of have I guess, do you have to have the permission of their parent, or,
Yeah.
sort of how does it work in terms of that?
I always have like to get permission from the owners, the pet parent, because I think it's really important to understand that boundary. Like if I'm walking in the street or sitting in the park or at a cafe, I'll always say hello to a doggy. But if they're sitting down, I'll say, oh, is your dog friendly? Can I pat them and have a little
Yes.
chat with them that way? If they come to me and I'm in the park, I'll say hi. But it's more like, hi, nice to meet you, instead of that in-depth
Right.
connection, because it's not our place to do that. It is boundaries and respect,
Mm-hmm.
just to be aware of that. Yeah,
Yeah,
100%.
and you're not working. You don't want to go
Not
into
working,
anything with this
and
animal, and yeah.
it's that over familiarity you can have with a person even that makes them uncomfortable
Mm-hmm.
when you
Yeah.
feed them. So I think that's really important. The other thing is people, pet parents, you know, they're protective over their pets, their animals.
Mhm.
You don't want to seem over familiar because they might think you're trying to steal them or something.
Yes. Yes. Who's this crazy dog lady?
Yeah, she's talking to my pet like she knows them.
Yeah. So let's talk a little bit about different types of species, because I think that, in general, it's really easy for us to go and talk about, working with dogs and working with cats because they are sort of the more common animals. But you mentioned that when you were growing up, you actually had a lot of different, I guess, siblings of different species. And I know that one time we talked as well, you had a snake in an aquarium behind you. So I guess they must be, is it
Yeah.
still there? Oh, yes. There we go.
No, but yes, he's there.
So cool. So let's talk a little bit about connecting with different species. So, in your experience, when you're working with and connecting with animals, do different species communicate differently, have different maybe things to say, or do you find that the personality of the animal really comes through and the species is just not really relevant?
Okay, so in my personal experience, it's all the same to me. It's like the personality. It's like someone from a different culture might have a different accent and they might talk at a different pace. It's like talking to someone that's got ADHD, they're going to talk fast and you really have to listen as well. Sort of
Yes.
something like that. But for me it was easy, but it was when I was learning to teach it that I actually realized the difference. So dogs and cats kind of speak at the same pace. Birds, and I'm going to talk about it in frequency vibration. So that's like the average person that we know that we're familiar with speak at that level with. That's, I'll just say, the centered line. Birds speak at a higher frequency and really, really fast. So sometimes when I was teaching this, I'd see some students go like this, like they're really listening and trying hard. And I said, oh, and then it's like you say to the animal, can you slow down or can you repeat that for me? If you don't understand it, I'll say to them, can you say it a different way? Can you share it with me a different way? And then you'll get a bigger picture that way. So birds speak faster. It's like a trilling frequency. Fish speak slower and I find more deliberate with what they're saying. My snake, and I've spoken to a few snakes, they're more very grounded in energy snakes, unless they're scared, obviously. And then they'll freak everybody out because they move so quickly. But I just feel that dogs and cats are the medium ones and bunnies as well. But the birds start to go flightier and higher in frequency, and the fish are a little bit lower. Kind of
Yeah.
like moving in water. Does that make
Yes.
sense?
It's really cool because when you were talking with that, I was like, okay, so the birds are in the air, and the air element for me is a really high frequency. It's a lot about like ideas and things coming in really, really, really fast, like a lot of intellect. And then the water element, the fish, right? The water is like the emotion, the intuition. Even when I say intuition, I automatically go zoom, like I kind of like suck in a little bit where I feel a little bit more slower pace, a little bit more in tune. And then when you're talking about the groundedness of the snake, it kind of makes sense. It, really almost like in with the soil of the earth, like feeling all of that so deeply. It's really interesting how your interpretation or the way that you're connecting with the animals or this different species is really based on also the elements that they're kind of gravitating to.
I've never thought of it that way, but yeah, that makes a lot of sense. A lot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love that. I mean, it's so cool because when I think about a snake, I can't help but think about the lisp and the drawn out S's and the really spaced out words. How does a snake feel to you when you're connecting with their energy?
So the energy is usually very grounded, but their personality comes in. So doesn't matter what species it is, every different living being has their own personality touched in on it. And that's what gives them their quirks. and that kind of, whether you can banter with them, whether you have to tread in more gently, or whether you need to come in a little bit firmer because they're cheeky and naughty, that sort of thing. So I can talk about my snake Pi. He more communicates through emotions.
Oh.
Like he'll talk sometimes, but I'll go, Pi, how are you feeling today? He'll say, I'm good. But then what he'll do is he'll wrap his energy around my neck and give me a cuddle.
Amazing.
And then if I'm stressed, he'll come up around my neck and go, and just, I get the feeling of a weight on me, and he'll just go, are you okay? He's very soft, but it's more through his emotions. Whereas my cat, Nero, that passed away last year, because Hubby was the one I had before, he was more a talker. Like, what are you doing? Why are you doing that? I don't like you doing that. He was just always talking.
When you talk to your pets, Simonne, do you speak out loud to them, or do you speak to them within your head?
Both.
Okay.
Both. It's kind of like what I do their dominant sense.
Okay.
And sometimes if it's complex and I want to really be descriptive, I'll use the feeling, but I'll describe it in words and maybe send a photo. With animals, when I do a session face-to-face for clients, I'll say it out loud so the pet parents can hear what I'm saying.
Yes. Yes. So why do you think that animals are here? I mean, you talked about being like an only child when you were growing up. I don't know whether or not you live alone or not, but I think that for me, like, getting George, because I don't have children, I feel that he's really given me the gift of being able to almost be a parent with him. So, and I remember reading, well, sorry, I should rephrase this. I started the book by, I think it's like what's his name? It's escaping me right now. I'm looking behind me at the moment because I do have his oracle deck with Colette Baron-Reed, but Vilnero, it's like a Spanish name. I'm so sorry. If it comes to me later, I'll let you know. But he was talking about how we need to go through these different roles in our life. So it's almost like we need to be the child, we need to be the teenager, we need to be the mother, and then we need to be the wise woman, just if we're using references to women. Yeah. So I guess my question to you is, why do you think animals are here? Do they have different purposes based on what they're here to do? What about animals that we eat? Do they come here, do you think, consciously knowing that that's part of why they're here? And I'll elaborate on my question further after you have a moment.
Basically, my belief is that we have many soulmates. I know people always look for their soulmate partner in life, but I believe we have soulmates as families in our family cluster. So through life, a soulmate can be a best friend, a parent, a sibling, or even an animal. And they come in to help us move through a certain stage. So Cubby, I had in my 20s, she came in to really activate the animal communication for me. She really developed it for me so that I did it for clients and then started teaching it. She would also boss me around. She was a very dominant cat. And she'd tell me, you've got to do it this way. And I'd be like, I don't want to do it that way. She's just try it. And I'd do it that way. And I go, okay, it works. So I think I was the stubborn one with her. So it was more, I feel Cubby was that for me. Now, people have animals to help them move along in a journey or a life lesson to get through, whether it's a support mechanism, whether it's a guidance part where they really show you, or to open a part of ourselves to be able to deal with that shadow aspect. Animals also take away energetically pain for us. So they can take on our sickness, our physical sickness, our emotional pain, even trying, how many times, if you're really in your head, does George try to get your attention?
I probably wouldn't even notice if I'm really in my head, but I will pay attention now.
Because what he's doing is trying to get you out of it and to get in the present moment. Animals make us in the present moment if we allow them to. They can also be quite grounding for us. If we have an animal that's quite anxious or quite a bit of a scaredy cat, so to speak, what that is that we have to step up for them. And a lot of the time, we might be the anxious person, but we're not willing to step up for ourselves. Many people will step up for their animal, which makes them actually have to step up for themselves energetically. So
That's so beautiful.
if an animal's really anxious, I'm not saying to compensate for their anxiety, because I think that's not necessarily the right support for them.
Mhm.
But if we ground our energy and practice grounding our energy, the animal's going to connect to us in that grounded energy. So both of us step out of that anxious.
I think
And
that's so cool because I was, doing a workshop a little while ago and I was teaching people about setting boundaries. And I was sort of explaining that when you're not used to setting boundaries, that it's actually important that you invite in opportunities to practice. So say no in ways that you feel comfortable. And what's coming through for me when you were talking about that is like, our animals are here to assist us with being brave
yeah,
in a way.
100%. Yeah,
Yeah. It just made me feel really emotional when I said that too.
it is. And, a lot of the time we've had past lives with these animals. Like, for many of us that are animal lovers, we will have, sorry, it makes me like emotional too. We will have
So
quite a few lives with these animals, souls wise. And their coming back or our rejoining is to help complete some karma, some life lesson, and just to open the door for that spiritual growth within ourselves, that bravery, that we're not alone.
yeah. And I think that, for me, it's like I go through, and I don't know what it's like for you, but I'm on the spiritual path. I live it every day. I do these conversations. I read these books. I connect with spirit. And then sometimes, probably when I'm not aware, and maybe George is trying to get my attention, I'm in my head and I feel like I have to do it alone. And I'm barraging through life and I'm forgetting to take a beat to ask for help or to ask for that support. And I just wanted to kind of go with that for a minute when you're talking about us not being alone, because that is the gift that they do give us, isn't it? I mean, he's in the other room. I'm not alone. I'm here with him. But if I'm sitting in my room, sometimes I forget that we're connected to all that there is.
Correct. What happens there is that, we've been taught to live through our minds. We've been taught to navigate life through that critical mind.
Yeah.
The voice, that one that's like the ego comes in, it's like chatting away. You didn't do this right. You didn't do that right. You can do this better.
Yeah.
And what happens is that when we live in that critical state of mind, that consciousness, we've actually disconnected from the physical body, which means we've disconnected from our heart. We don't have that beautiful connection with our heart. It's not open to receive that love and that abundance of support, and that we're not alone, those feelings. When we connect to our animal, even just thinking of our animal, you can be at work and you think of your animal. I know, like, I used to think of when I used to have an office, I'd think of Nero and his smell would come in and I'd instantly smile and my heart would just go boom, wide open.
Oh,
That is one of the purposes that animals in our lives do for us. One of their major, major roles, which is the heart opening, heart chakra opening. It is such an important experience to feel safe, to experience an open heart and receive love, not just because a lot of the time we give love. Most of the time we don't know how to receive it safely. And that's a big thing, and why we're open and closing our heart chakra. With animals, we just open it and we feel safe to receive, which is huge. And that's some people are more animal tuned because they feel safer opening their heart and receiving love from the animals than people, because they don't understand boundaries with people.
Right. Or they know that the animal is unconditional, that even if you have a fight or an argument, that you both can let it go and everything is fine, shortly thereafter. when you're talking about the heart, it's like I interviewed this woman on my show. I can't remember if I told you, but her name's Rhiannon Hines, and she's got an amazing book called The Keepers of the Light Codes. And I remember I was reading that book, and it was alarming to me how much it felt like home. Like from the first page, I just went, I found what I understood about the heart in a completely different way. And I feel like my soul had been yearning for that, because I've got heart tattoos all over. I've always been into heart. So it's always been my sort of thing, but I don't think I really ever got it in the same way. And one of the things that I realized that for many, many years of reprogramming my mind is that I was missing the key element of feeling.
Yeah.
And I think maybe part of it is because this is just me surmising, but that, maybe when I was younger, I shut down a lot of feeling, because being empathic and not understanding that, I would have been overwhelmed. So maybe not feeling enough, now makes sense, like that I've kind of been reawakening to it. But when I think of connecting with George, or how much I love him, or my old dog, the love there is, like you said, it's overwhelming. And one of the things that I started to do is when I would do my gratitude list, or I was really in my head, is feeling the love I have for my animals, and then being able to, it's like you said, you come right back into your body, into the present moment, into the here and the now.
You do, you definitely do. And what you're coming up with in the heart space is you're really connecting to the upper heart chakra, which means accessing to the universal love, soul love level. So the bottom heart chakra, bottom part of the heart chakra, is more earthbound, third dimensional, right? So we're still connecting with others, but we're still doing it in a conditional form, so to speak.
Right.
Still love. There's no judgment in it, but there's more like, will they love me back? Am I enough? The upper heart chakra is the part where it's like connected to the higher realms, and it's the unconditional part. Most people know, or I want to remind them, if you have an animal, that we are their be all and end all. We are their point in the world that gives them a reference. So it's easy when you know this, why they give us such unconditional love, why they're always looking to us for reassurance or direction, or come on, is it feeding time yet? That sort of thing. It's the upper heart chakra connection that's occurring there. Now, a lot of parents have this with newborns or young toddlers when they can't speak, when we're really guiding them, things like that. As they get older and we have to start reprimanding, teaching, and life gets a little bit challenging, the bottom part is activated as well. And then we have desires for what we want for our children as well. So that's where the bottom part gets activated. But with animals, it's a little bit different. It's really like a coming home to ourselves, that opening of the heart that they activate within us. We love each of our animals differently, but each one has a purpose, a role, a dynamic, energetic dynamic within us to help us shift, propel forward, or connect at a different level, heal aspects of ourselves. And animals, sorry, yeah.
Go ahead. No, go ahead.
Animals are really like, I don't feel that people understand the important role that animals do play within a family dynamic, even for children. We're seeing now, like, what do we call them? Assistant dogs, or sorry. They play such an important role with people's needs, just calming them down, epilepsy, company. It is their role. As we sort of awaken consciously, every single being, species is awakening as well. So their roles, their purpose also increases.
It's just so beautiful. One of the things I want to ask you is about the concept of reincarnation. You did talk earlier about soul families and the concepts of, our animals being part of our soul family. Do you believe, or in your experience even, that animals can sometimes come and then their physical being kind of has to dissolve and then they need to come back and continue to do the work? Or,
Some of us are lucky enough,
mm,
same animal's soul twice. I call it just a soul because it's just a different species, and we're a species as well, and it's always crossing over. I've had
yeah,
animals that have been human in past lives as well. So lucky enough to get the same soul twice in a lifetime. I haven't experienced it with clients as a norm,
yeah.
but it has increased over the last, say, few years.
Oh, wow.
So I don't know if that has to do with the opening or the shifting of um, the energies. It has in the last 5 years increased a little bit more. Or they'll say to me, "We will be coming back. I will be coming back in this lifetime."
That's so interesting. The word that came to me when you said that was rapport. So maybe there's some kind of familiarity where they're able to almost pick up where they left off versus when you're meeting a new soul or you have a different connection. Maybe you can't go as deep, like maybe it takes time. I don't know if that.
I don't know. I haven't actually
Yeah.
looked into it that much, but I also get that the human has to shift and grow themselves in their own time, and then they come back at another certain growth spurt opportunity, or when another door opens,
Mhm.
or when I won't say a trauma, when a challenging period enters, they may choose to come back then.
Mhm. What about animals that are, I live near a farm. Sorry, I live on like a property, and so our property borders farms. So we have cows, which are just best, and they always come up to the fence and but they're being raised for meat. That's
Yes.
why they're there. And I wanted to ask you a little bit about that. I don't know whether or not you're vegetarian. I haven't asked you that before. I have met with animal communicators before, and they are all vegetarian. I wanted to know a little bit about your thoughts on that, including animals who come here and seemingly their purpose is to feed humans, but we know there's something else probably at play at the same time. Any thoughts on that, Simonne?
For me, I'm not an active promoter of that, not to eat animals. Okay. I think some people are anemic and they need to eat it.
Mm-hmm.
I eat seafood, but I don't eat any chicken or red meat. I don't eat a lot of seafood. But for me, it's more about animals that are farmed. I feel that their soul knows this to experience it, and it's more that they do a service for humanity. They are living more in survival mode. And how I kind of liken that is to areas of the world that aren't necessarily living in luxury. They're in survival mode. And it's an experience for them. And it's like they actually purge some karma by choosing to do that.
I
It's
remember,
to society, to the human growth.
yeah, I remember when I read Robert Schwartz's book, and it was called Your Soul's Gift. And he was talking about even examples of like when women miscarry or have an abortion, that sometimes there's a pre-birth plan there. I'm saying sometimes because I don't know if it's all the time. I'm just kind of paraphrasing, but that the soul wants to experience life, but not for a long time, like just almost a glimpse of it or for a moment. And there's like this connection or this agreement between the mother and the fetus or the soul, I guess, to
So it
experience that. Yeah.
comes into experience duality, and it might be their final level of experiencing at that level of pain or loss or whatever the emotion the mother is actually feeling at that time.
Oh.
So you've got to remember what they experience as a feeling, the fetus, is whatever the mother's going through. So that soul knows that, and it might
Right.
be coming to clear up some of their own karma, or coming to help clear the mother or the father's karma as well. And I don't like to look at karma as a punishment. All it is karma is that something's repeated until something's resolved. Until we are able to look at it through a different lens or a different perspective, and it shifts the complete experience, and then it's just done.
Yeah, because we're the ones that say that's good, that's bad, that's,
Very true.
Yeah, the reason why I brought up that example was because I was thinking about, well, maybe some of the animals that are here to provide sustenance for humans are also experiencing life in a way that, is fragile.
Yeah, they would be experiencing. There'd be periods where it'd be okay depending on how their life is, but I encourage humane animal living.
100%. Yes,
Like,
especially if you're going to, we're not preaching, but I mean, let's be real. If you're going to also consume these animals.
Because whatever is in the animal's body at the time of death is the energy that's stuck in the meat or whatever it is that you happen to be eating. If it's in shock or in pain, we get that frequency as we eat it. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So it can increase your own pain vibration. Meat is very dense. And if you're talking about energetically wanting to lift up, it's very holding and grounding and earthy. So I'm not here to tell you what's right, what's wrong regarding your diet, but it's just that if you want to lift up and have the higher frequencies a little bit more, maybe reduce your eating. Maybe eat just white meat, or just be aware of the type of meat you're eating, like organic, that sort of stuff.
Exactly. One of the things that I learned many, many years ago, and I will say don't do it every meal, but I do it whenever I'm thinking about it, and this is a note for me to continue this up, is I always say bless this food from, its moment of inception until now. So essentially from the moment all the way till I eat it, all the process and things like that. Do you believe that we can transmute energy, or is a dense...
The indigenous people of every country, they have rituals for when they go hunting, and when they kill the animal, they do a ritual of gratitude, of thanking it and blessing it. And like, for me, that's working in harmony with the animals, and then as they eat it, they're grateful, and they're having that beautiful gratitude and blessing energy that they're ingesting. And it's like you hold the space for the animal soul to transmute.
Yeah. I guess it comes down to also your intention and your awareness, where you're not just doing things, almost like brain dead. You're like being really conscientious that an animal actually was raised for this purpose, and you get to enjoy that. And yeah. So one of the things I want to ask you about, and feel free to, say as much or as little as you want on the subject, but I remember someone asked me, they said, now that you realize you're a medium, does it change the way that you look at death? Does it make death easier? And I said, no, it doesn't. Because nothing is the same as a physical hug, when you're in a physical body, or, you can get smells and we can get feelings, but it's not the same as when you can run your fingers through a mane or an animal's fur, or you can feel like a human, that you're hugging, for example. So I guess I wanted to ask you that question. Do you find that your connection to the other side, that your connection and your awareness of souls living on, reincarnation, even you as somebody who channels light language, so our star seed ancestry, do you find that affects your connection with life and death and the process of that?
It does and it doesn't. So we're here having a human experience, no matter how enlightened we are. Grief is grief. And physically, we grieve a death. I think I always say that we need tears, because tears are a show of how much we love that animal or that person. It doesn't matter if you don't cry as well. It's important to express how we grieve and remember it. What's hard for me is knowing it's about to happen. I kind of get into a panic mode. I remember my grandmother, I felt her passing 2 years before it actually happened.
Oh.
And for me, the lead up to of knowing it was going to happen creates anxiety for me. Once it happened, I was so at peace. It was like I was holding the space and waiting for that moment to happen. And the same with my animals. It's like Cubby, my first one, she passed away because she had run away to die. She didn't want me to be there. And the day that she passed, I felt it. I felt like something had shaken my world. I didn't know what it was. And I remember saying to a friend, I don't know what's happened, but something so bad has happened. It's going to change my life. And she's like, what do you mean? I said, I don't know, but it's not going to be the same again. And then a week later, we found her passed. It might have been a few days actually. With Nero, I knew it was going to happen. I knew it was going to happen around July, August, the year before.
Oh.
Sometimes knowing is not a good thing. I don't know how to explain it. Knowing it's going to happen, it also gave me time to be really present and have beautiful moments with him. But it was also a weight knowing that time's getting closer, closer, closer. It's like knowing your best friend's going to move halfway across the world and you don't know when you'll see them again. And you see them every day. You've got the date, you know it's impending, you're making as much time and taking as much time together as you can, but you know that date's coming. It's a specific date. Once he passed, well, actually, he left his body before his body passed. And he came and sat on my shoulder because he passed to my aunts. He sat on my shoulder and he said, I'm not there anymore.
Oh.
I'm not in there anymore. And he said, you can let that go now. I'm here. And I went, okay. And the grief, I grieved him, but it's more a pining. I miss cuddling him more than, oh my God, he's gone out of my life. So I miss cuddling him, but he was there for quite a while afterwards. So the after effect of him passing is easier. The same with my grandmother and Cubby, but the knowing beforehand for me freaks me out a bit still.
You know, what's interesting when you said that is that I have heard reports, for lack of a better word, of, when people are experiencing death, that they're not in their body, that they actually leave before it happens. So it just seems to me like that's almost what happened there.
And Cubby, my first cat, I said, Cubby, you can tell me when it's nearly happening. And she came a month before Nero passed.
Oh, wow.
Constantly so I was like, okay, it's happening soon.
What about people who have to put their animals down? I want to bring that up because I know that people who have to make those decisions, that very often they are left with those thoughts of, did I do the right thing? Could I have done anything different? And I guess I would love to know, in your experience, speaking with animals who have passed in that way, what's your kind of...
I do a lot of sessions with people to make that decision, or they come to me for me to help them make that decision. And I don't tell them what to do. All I say is that with animals, quality of life is so much more important than quantity of life.
Oh.
Things that animals will do is they'll hang on to their bodies, especially if the pet parent isn't ready for them to go. And the body will just not work as well and just kind of deteriorate. So one of the things I say to them to do first is to have a really heart-to-heart conversation and let them know that they can go. You're ready for them to go. and that you're going to be really, really sad. Your heart's hurting. It's only because you love them so much.
Yeah.
You're going to hold the space for them, and you're going to step up, and you're going to be okay. You'll be really sad, but you don't want them to stay like this. So that's the first step that we do. And it's helping the pet parent come to terms with what's actually happening. Sometimes you see your pet every day, you don't see them age, or you don't see how much they're struggling at certain times. And if they're just lingering on still, or they have an illness or a condition that's causing them a lot of pain, I will say to them, if there is more pain than joy for the majority of the day, you can make that decision. I have some animals say to me that they want their pet parent to make that decision. And there's a sign that they will give them for their pet parent to make that decision. And Nero gave me that sign. He never bellowed in pain, ever. And I said, when it's too much and you want me to make that decision, I want you to bellow. And over 3 days, he bellowed 3 times.
Mm.
And then I called the vet.
Mm-hmm.
So in my head, I go, oh, I could have done it 3 days earlier. But in their eyes, what I really tell people is that the very last part of their life is not what an animal holds on to. It's not even what a human holds on to, as you would know. It's the duration of their life, the connections, what they experience. The last part, yeah, does have an imprint, but it doesn't take over their entire life that they had.
No, in fact, some souls come to me and they don't want to talk about the death at all. They just want to show like highlights, like the highlight reel kind of.
Correct.
Yeah.
And I said, it's not about your, because I go, please ask them to forgive me. I said, it's not about your animal forgiving you, but if you need that, they say they forgive you. It's about you forgiving yourself, but knowing that you did what they wanted and needed.
Mm-hmm.
You put aside your own feelings to help them. And I said, that takes a really brave and courageous person to do that at this time. So I have some clients that don't believe in that because of their religion, and they keep saying, help them go. And I say, they will go then at their own time. Their soul is leaving their body. Sorry, their spirit is leaving their body, but it takes time.
Mm-hmm.
It takes time for that to happen.
You know what I think a big part about this conversation as well is really around the idea of trust, because I think that, you know, for myself anyway, my own experience, and I'd love to hear what you think, that, you know, doing mediumship and channeling work and stuff like that, it really is the biggest test in a way of trust that I've ever had. And a big part of that is because sometimes you don't understand what it is you're getting or seeing, and you have to just deliver. And sometimes it's not met with a, yeah, you did it, high five. It's met with a, that makes no sense to me. Yeah. And which can be very confusing. And you just have to continue to go on. And it's these opportunities of being able to trust yourself. And I think that in general in life, we don't really practice that skill very much.
We don't.
No, we're not exactly. We're like, oh, I should listen to my intuition, but I didn't do it. Or I didn't even notice my intuition was telling me something. And I think a big part about what I'm hearing from you is almost like when you are being given these opportunities to make decisions, that when you can just trust that you're going to make the right decision, I believe that just means that everything is divinely ordered, because you would be guided. And in some cases, you would be hit over the head with something if it wasn't going to be the right decision. You know, there would be blockages that would be kind of thrown up along your way on your way to make a choice. Do you sort of agree with that?
I definitely agree. And, you know, we're here to experience the duality of, if you want to call it in just black and white, light and darkness, pain and joy, mistake and success. You know, that duality plus all the gray in between. It's not necessarily a right or a wrong, it's to experience. And if we can reflect on those experiences without judgment, we're learning our karma. We're resolving our shadow part of ourselves. And animals help us do that. Even right to the very end of their lives, they help us to do that in how we step up for them to hold the space.
Mm-hmm.
When some clients feel like their heart's been ripped out because of the death of their animal, sometimes they need another animal to help them heal, to move across that. Sometimes they just want the space to reflect on how much they love the animal, to heal. And then when they're ready, they get another one. But the right animal or the right soul will come at the right time.
Mm-hmm.
Some expect it to be the same as the last one they had, and they go, I got the same breed, but they're not the same. I don't feel the same about them. And that's where I say, you fall in love with every animal that you have differently, like we fall in love with people differently, partners differently. It's never the same love. It doesn't diminish the love. It's just that it's different. And if you can accept that, you can find that beautiful connection with your animal and then grow together, because they're always teaching us. And some are so wise and intuitive, it is scary.
Yeah, but we have to be listening, don't we? Do you ever ask questions or ask for guidance from your animals?
All the time. What do you think about this? About that? Should I do this? Should I do that? Sometimes if you ask, because I can access their soul. Like if we access our soul, it's so freaking wise, right?
Yeah.
And intuitive. It's the same thing. Animals have the same thing. You access their soul and they will tell you so much, give you so much insight on their purpose, their mission in life, what they want to achieve in this lifetime. Then you have the animal's personality and spirit mingled in with their species coming in. So you can get two parts of who they are.
That's so cool. That's making me think that I need to ask George what his purpose is and see what he says.
We
So
can
I don't
ask.
think it,
You
huh?
want, you want to ask him?
Oh, sure. Let's ask him.
So let me connect with him, George. Hi, Mr. Handsome. Good. So he's letting me connect with him. I'm just saying to him now, I'm going to connect with your higher self now. Okay. Can you feel the shift as I go up higher?
I'm just feeling really nervous and also emotional.
Okay, so let's go up to the higher part, George. Good. Mummy wants to know what your mission is, what your purpose is in this lifetime. He says, I help Mummy see. My mission is to help her see through grounded eyes. What does that mean, grounded eyes? He says, sometimes Mummy gets very excited when she does this work, that she lifts up and then the information can't come through as deeply.
Oh.
He says, I remind her. It's like you get excited and the energy quivers, and he reminds you just to be like that anchor of receiving the information, and it drops in instead of you kind of reaching out. Does that make sense what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
So what else? He says it's all done through the heart chakra. He says Mummy doesn't realize yet, but I help her do a lot of work. He says, I'm not always in the same room, but I know when she's working and I will come and energetically hold the space with her. It's like he's your anchor in it. He's showing me. So what that means is he grounds you.
That's so beautiful. I remember too, when you first met him, that you said to me, he will be helping you. You need to tell him when he sees things around here, what's going on. Because this is when he was like a little bit younger. I think it was probably 6 months ago or something. And yeah, it's so that's so beautiful, Simonne. Thank you for that.
Yeah, so he's going to work with you. You're getting all the information. It's not that you're not getting the information. His energy is just showing me, it's like the only way I can explain it is that when you're channeling, the information comes this way through this. When he anchors you, the information, it's a wider bandwidth of information. So you're getting how about 3G to 5G phone? He
That
gets you to 5G phone level.
That's so, it makes a lot of sense for me too, because I don't know about you when you do your channeling, but sometimes when I'm doing my channeling, it's as though you have so much information pouring through. And I always go, I got that, because they're telling me, and I go, I got it. And it's not, I got it, I've just said it, it's got it. I'm about to deliver that information. But I know for myself, sometimes it's like flooded, inundated. I liken it to one time I connected with someone's family in spirit. And I said, oh, there's so many people here. And I heard like all this chattering and all over the place and partying. This person had lost 13 people in 1 year, if you can believe it. Oh, but why I'm bringing this up is because that's what it was like. It was like so much information pouring through, and all of these speakers. So it makes a lot of sense that there would be some assistance with that. So how cool.
When that happens to me, I'm like, guys, you need to get in the line so I know who I'm talking to. They're kind of, let's go.
One at a time. Well, Simonne, we are out of time. Speaking of time, thank you so much for being here. I mean, I could just talk to you for forever. It's just flows so naturally and so easily. So you teach people how to communicate with their animals. Can you explain a little bit about how people can find out more information? Is it an online course? Is it one-on-one training with you? And how can people get a hold of you as well?
So my website is animalcommunicationmethod.com. And what it is I've broken it down into different levels. There's the beginner's level where you just want to do it for your pet and you still learn how to communicate. You can do it with friends. So that's usually levels 1 to 4, but you can just do one level only and you will start communicating with your animal. And then level 4 is learning how to heal your animal. So it's Reiki 1 for people and animals. Do level 1 to level 4, and then you hit the professional level from 5 onwards, and that's really knowing how to hold the space between the owner, pet owner, and the animal, how to negotiate.
Cool.
I tell you, when you do animal communication, you're not doing just the animal, you're doing the pet parent, adjusting their expectations and getting them to work, and you're negotiating like they want usually their pets to do this, this, and this. And I'm like, well, what are you going to do to shift to entice them to do that? So they both have to level up. And that's the negotiating part that you do. And then holding both of them accountable that way. So that's a professional one. And I think that's lots and lots of fun. I've got 10 graduates that have done it over the last 5 years and they love it.
Well, it's a game changer, really. I know that, even when you can just provide a little bit of comfort to somebody, it completely changes their whole life, let alone being able to connect with somebody that has lost, their child or their, in pet form, which for a lot of our pets, that's the role that they play. Wonderful. Well, thank you for being here so much, my sister. I will put a link to all your stuff in the show notes as well. And for our listener at home, if you haven't already, please do go back and listen to the episodes with Simonne on light language. They're amazing. And she does a healing for us in there from the Pleiadians. And it's just absolutely incredible. So I look forward to having you back on the show, because something tells me it will not be the last time I bother you to come and hang with me.
No, I love it. Thank you so much.